Cajun music is an extremely elusive music. As simple as some people might take it, and simple as might seem, a ballroom, a typical ballroom with a steel guitar player, a drummer, a accordion player, and another fiddle player, and that's it, in that stereotype. Well, I find it to be much more than that, because there's a certain quality about playing Cajun music that the old-timers know. And people can play the notes, but if you don't play the feelings with the notes, then there's something wrong and you're not playing it right. So it's that elusive quality that I've been searching for a long time. It just has to be within your individual self, but to find out how the old-timers or the older musicians, how they can explain that to me and how I can see it through them. People like Dennis McGee. Dennis McGee is going to be 87 this month. Dennis and I are really good buddies, and I've just learned so much from him. He's like also a grandfather figure to me, but he's the grandfather of the music. I mean, the Cajun music that we understand today was first put on wax in 1928. Before that, it could have been anything. In 1928, it went down. This song began and ended 3 minutes after it started, and within that, people said they played on their phonographs, and they said, well, this must be it. This is the storyline for it. This is the format we're going to play it on. Well, Dennis McGee was one of those pioneers who's still around to tell us how it was. And through people like Dennis and Dewey Balfa and his brothers, Will and Rodney, I've come to learn or gather a sense of what the music is, more than just the music as a two-dimensional object, sort of, what you see, but this is like a four-dimensional object. Is that it's not only it's got mass, but it's got meaning, and it's got another kind of spirit to it. I don't really consider myself a musician, a professional musician. I love to play music. I've been playing music since I've been 6 years old, and playing a variety of instruments. What I find myself doing now, what I've been doing for the past 10 years, is playing French music. And why I play French music is because the music that I really love and feel akin to. It's a music that I can best express myself in and through. One of the jobs that I do, a full-time job, is with the Diocese of Lafayette, and I'm employed as a producer. I produce a 15-minute French radio show, a weekly show, and I assistant producer for a television program that we have called Reel to Reel, and anything else that goes through the diocese, any kind of media, because I feel like I can express myself, or at least try to express what the church is about and what we can do for other people. Other than that, this year I started teaching at the University of Southwest Louisiana in the capacity of a professor with a course that I had designed a couple of years ago. It's known as Louisiana French Folk Music. And I learn just as much as I teach, I guess, or that's part of teaching. Other than that, I work with Dewey Balfa, who is the director of the Acadian and Creole Music History Program. Dewey received the grant in 1975 to do this, and he hired me on as an assistant coordinator, art director in 1976. What we do, we go to, we find musicians or musicians that we have known throughout Southwest Louisiana, and we go to public schools, and we explain a little bit about the history of Cajun music, how it got to Louisiana, and where is it now. But we explain through it like a first person. The people who we go with and asked to go with us are people who play themselves. They're not professional musicians either. They all usually have other jobs. So I really enjoy doing that. I guess that's another part of my life, is learning and teaching at the same time. I consider myself a student also of Cajun music, because there's so many great musicians out there who have just an incredible amount of knowledge about the music, about their culture, about French, and the techniques of what Cajun music is. I mean, I was born in 1951, and I started playing the banjo at 6. My greatest influence at that time was my uncle, T. Will Knight, who played banjo, bass guitar, and fiddle, whose fiddle is hanging on the wall downstairs, by the way. But I went through a range of things. In my family, they have a lot of musicians, but not only French musicians, they have classical musicians also, and jazz musicians. So I was influenced by that, and I played trumpet and French horn. French horn was my favorite instrument. And then, just like anybody else who went through that time, after I saw John Lennon on television, well, I wanted to play guitar. So I played guitar. But I mean, not losing the guitar is a universal instrument. But yeah, I've gone through a lot of different stages, a lot of different musics. I've always tried to play and learn as much as I could. I guess I've always kind of leaned back on acoustic music, on music that was of a simpler state, that just had meaning and had, I guess, a very romantic melody to it, and a melody line. I guess I'm just a romantic at heart, you know, a fighter of hopeless causes. I guess that's my middle name. So with that, yes, I'm sure I've gone through many developments, many stages of it. It happened, I guess the greatest stage is when, in 1973, when I went with a partner of mine at the time. We were a duo, I guess, and we went to France to play Cajun music. It was my first trip abroad and my first experience of that. And we landed in Saint Laurent, France, and all of a sudden here are people our age, that maybe 6 or 7 fiddle players, and they're all playing Cajun songs. And I said, what is this? You can't even find that around here. You know, people who can get together do that, because they wanted to learn that. They, at that time, at that 1973, France was coming into their own as looking for their roots as a country, looking for a new passage that they could find. And what they found in Cajun music was, here, this is French music. This is music of their, well, it was of their homeland, but their language. And what we represented to them was the new French word, in that way, the new French music. This is a music that could last and survive along with any kind of popular music that exists at the time. So what turned me around then was how these people felt about it, because they gave me something that maybe I found was lacking here, because over there they're more centered for one subject. Like they really get involved in one thing. They go into depth over one particular kind of music. And for at that time, it was Cajun music. So with that attitude and with that feeling, because I played with so many people over there, people like Michel Hundenack, whose feeling, he writes Cajun songs, or songs in a Cajun vein, whose feeling is just as justified as someone like Dewey Balfa here, who has played the music of his family. There are people who are born into a small town or born into a family who hear the music, who like to play the music, who play, but who can just as well let it go. I don't find a strong feeling of that among young people to save the older style of music, because it's been, like I said, like I went to, there's so many different styles and different epochs of the music and the creations of the music and different type of influences, that it's hard for a person just to pick one style or one time period. So if he wants to play, he wants to be the best, obviously he can, so he'll pick a certain hero, Nathan Afshar or something like that, and play that style. I guess that's where I'm different. in that I chose to play. I played a lot of other music before, playing classical music, playing popular music, blues music, French music from France and from Canada. That I chose to research and do as much as I could for understanding the differences of styles that a person who lived in Gaydon might not be able to do. He might not be able to travel to Mamou to listen to somebody else and get a first-hand report. As we were talking about Dennis McGee. Dennis McGee, to me, is as I say before, is my grandfather figure, but he is the one, the person who is here. He recorded in 1928. He began playing before 1900. He learned from people in Mamou, the Corvilles. He learned how to play a two-fiddle style. He learned how to play the old style, of style that was beyond time, beyond Louisiana, that was maybe played in Louisiana but came from the old country. He kept that style all along. He played with Amédée Ardouin, and throughout the years, he hasn't never changed his style. But what I understand, what you tell me, what makes a Cajun musician or a French musician, a person who plays French music, is a person who plays by their heart.
Ouais, c'est comme je te dis, c'est un don.
Un don.
Ouais,
c'est ça.
toi, magnifique le don.
C'est magnifique. What he plays is the word, is the final word. And that's something that's very hard to grasp. Something an urbanite might be more difficult to grasp than someone who lives out in the prairies or a rural area. Because what he plays and what he puts in the song is the total makeup of the song. That song is not written down. That song is not formulated by somebody else. It is original in his hands and in his spirit and in his mind. So that if you want to capture or continue, perpetuate that particular song, you have to get into that person, that individual who's playing it. And to get into somebody who is 60 years older than you takes time, because it can't be superficial. It has to be person to person, and you have to know it and like it, and he has to like you, and then he's going to show you how to play it. Like I said, I think it's a little sad here, but lucky that I had the experience to do it, because I've studied with Dennis. I continue to study with Dennis as long as I can, as long as he's alive, as long as I'm alive. But the sad part about it is that there's no one else. I'm the only one from Louisiana that Dennis tells me that takes the time to go to his house and just to talk and drink coffee with him and his wife Gladys. I'm the only one that takes the time to go there and talk to Dennis and try to learn his songs, because they're difficult songs. Now what Dennis says, his songs are the way you play it. You know, people who play like 30s music or 40s music, Cajun music, they play that new style and they cut corners. They change the music. Dennis's stuff, his music is intricate because he's got a certain bow technique that nobody else uses around here. He plays his songs, most of them are in 3 parts instead of 2 parts, and just the whole melodies that he's playing, and you can hear it. We have a reissue of his recordings of 1928, and he recorded another album in 1977, and that fire, that drive is the same, and we're talking about 50 years difference. J'adore.